All right, another evening, another webinar for all of you, and a very, very warm welcome to all of the people who have tuned in already or who have been waiting. I can see a lot of people already waiting for this webinar, and why not? The thumbnail itself is very tempting because it says that don't self-reject yourself, and that's something that we all do to begin with. Say ever since we start our preparation, ever since we go to that exam hall and we then see the kind of paper that we have solved. We start calculating in our mind that would I make it? Uh, the dream institute that I have in mind that I have worked so hard for, is this possible for me to get through? And that is the answer that you're going to get today when it comes to SPJIMR, because I have, as you can see, a lot of these faces in front of me who are going to tell you in detail about that, about why you should not self-reject, and about what they also felt at the time when they were in the kind of similar situation that you probably are going to be very soon. I have with me Vaibhav, Vijit, and Santosh. They're all current students at SPJIMR. Welcome, all of you guys. And the cherry on the cake is Divya. Divya manages admissions, if I have to say. She is going to give you more insights about what she has been doing in SPJIMR for quite some time now. So, Divya, let's start with you. Let's start with your, brief description as to what you do and who you are and how you're going to be helpful for the next 1 hour. Divya, can you unmute yourself, please?
Yes. Yeah, thank you. So good evening, everyone. My name is Divya Sriram. I am from the Central Admissions team. I lead the team. And, every year we get applicants who are apprehensive with a lot of questions. And so I hope that this session is helpful to you. And I'll try my best to solve as many queries that you have.
Super. Divya was as generous as she could be, and I'm sure that she's going to definitely take up some difficult questions that students have in mind as well. Vaibhav, what about you? Who are you, and why should we listen to you?
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for allowing me to introduce myself. I am Vaibhav, a present first year PGDM BM student at SPJIMR. And prior to this, I was studying a BSMS dual degree in physics for 5 years at Indian Institute of Science Education and Research, Bhopal. And I am a fresher, which I think is something which is one of the first steps you reject yourself. So I bring a unique perspective to this conversation.
Right. Right indeed. If you're a fresher, you think that you are 2 steps behind in the race, and probably you must have also thought that. Vijit, was it a case for you as well?
Hi everyone. So Paul, my case is slightly different than Weber. So I come with about 25 months of work experience in consulting. I was with ZS Associates before this. Currently, I'm a PGDM marketing student at SPJIMR. So for me, the story is of how an engineer with a BTech honors degree in mechanical engineering ended up with a marketing specialization. I too converted a profile-based call here. So probably the people out there would want to know that side of the story as well.
Right. And Santosh, we mentioned a very interesting thing, which is a profile-based selection that SPJIMR thrives on. And I'm sure people who have tuned in, they all want to know what this beast is. So what was your case, Santosh?
Well, it was very similar to Webhouse. Even I'm a fresher, and I had particularly low percentile in CAT as well. So SP was a saving grace for me, and I couldn't have asked for more.
Super. Divya, first up, we heard that, freshers, low percentile, and an engineer making it to, marketing. Tell me in a brief, in a nutshell, what exactly is the kind of thing that you're looking at when you are first looking at a profile, right? Because you are an institute, because you have been doing it for the last 7 years for SPJIMR itself, what is that first thing that excites you in a profile? Divya, you're on mute. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry. For us, it's more like a cumulative exercise, There is no one thing that can go against a particular candidate. We have freshers who apply. So a lot of people think that, my profile is strong if I have work experience. Otherwise, I don't have a strong profile. And they couldn't be farther away from the truth. We look at academics, we look at extracurricular activities, We look at other achievements that are outside of your academics. If you have any hobbies or interests, we look at that also. So we're looking for a well-rounded personality, and everybody has some or the other strengths. So if they can play at their strengths and be upfront about their achievements and take time to fill up the form in a way which details their successes, that really helps us understand the candidate for who they are. And we welcome unique profiles in that sense. We want to add that kind of a healthy mix in the batch so that the dynamics are rich, and the batch gets to interact with people across industries, across the country, with varied backgrounds, and that makes it a very enriching experience for them as well.
Right. Divya, oftentimes what happens, and I go to a lot of these schools and I see this firsthand, is we include students for the sake of diversity, right? For the sake of just adding a few numbers here and there, few people from a particular gender and all that. When you think of diversity, when you think of a classroom that should be as diverse as it could get, what are the kind of things that you keep in mind, and how much SPJIMR walks the talk when we talks about a diverse classroom?
So again, if you look at our admission mechanism, we do not have a special weightage for anyone in general. Like, we do not say that we want more women in the batch. We do not have special points for that. Uh, Everybody gets into this institute purely by merit. Okay. And when I say merit, it can be merit across things. It doesn't have to be only academics. And in fact, we're not even asking for a very high, CAT score. We have a cutoff, which is 85 percentile overall and 75% in each section. So what we're trying to say is that if your profile is interesting, if you have an interesting personality, and you have something unique to bring to the table, we are okay with having an 85 percentile, because we understand that one day of CAT cannot determine a person, right? I might have a bad day, and the exam that I give may not go well. But we look at the entire application in its entirety. We look at the individual holistically. So if somebody has an interesting hobby that they are pursuing, maybe I'm good at music, or maybe I'm good at sports.
Right.
I think I should take the time to add that in my application. We also have a couple of, essay questions that we ask the candidate after they get shortlisted. And we try and know the person for who they are. We want genuine responses from them. And we delve into their experiences to understand the person that they are today.
Right.
So in that sense, it's not purely numbers either. So I cannot say that if I didn't get a 99 in CAT, my fate is sealed. That's not so. We are here to encourage people for who they are. And if they have the desire or the passion to learn what management is about, and if they want to be leaders of tomorrow, then they should do their best and try and apply to the institute, and then we'll take it ahead from there.
Super. Taking a cue from low percentile in CAT, Santosh mentioned that he did not have a stellar CAT result. Am I right, Santosh? Can I say this?
Could you repeat your question? I couldn't hear the last bit.
No, so I said that you did not have a stellar CAT performance or the marks to boast about. Is that true? Did you say that, or Vijit said that?
No, if you're talking about CAT percentiles, yeah, it was me.
Yeah.
So in fact,
let me complete my question, Santosh. So I'm saying, when you know for a fact that you don't have, say, a particular amount of percentile, right? Then what do you think? What is the first thing that comes to your mind? Does SPJIMR comes as a choice in your mind naturally because it looks into your profile and you thought that probably this will not cut it, the marks that I've gotten or the percentile I've gotten, but my profile definitely would? Or is it the other way around?
So when I first thought about SPJIMR when applying, it was totally different from how I perceived the other top B schools. So the one criteria for every other B school is the percentile. But for SPJIMR, it has been always everything, not one thing about you. And even for me, I think that was a saving grace, as I said, because I got my profile-based call 2 days before my CAT score came. So I was actually ecstatic when I received the score, when I received the call from SPJIMR. But then when the cutoff was so close in DLR, I got a 77 in that. So it was very close for me. But irrespective, they gave me a fair chance to play at it. I remember in my GI1, I was sitting next to a 99.99 percentile from my
Wow.
city. So it was almost an intimidating experience for me. But then again, I remembered that I am here not because of sheer luck. Maybe I did something right. And in my application, in fact, I felt was quite well rounded. Although I spent very little time, and feel that I should have spent more. And that's what I advise my juniors as well. Because you want to make your application not similar to the CAT form that you fill. It's
Right.
not something that you fill in 10-15 minutes. You should
Correct.
take a couple of days if you can. Filter through all the things about your personality. It's not one day that you can put down on paper. It's your whole life up until now what you've done. So I remember there was an area where I could talk about a place of decision making that I have made in my life. So it was a very small thing. I had planned a trip for my family, not very major, because I'm a fresher after all. I can't really write down any other experience. But then small things like that. I had a national certificate experience in debating, MUNs, a couple of sports as well. So that's why I believe I got shortlisted. But then again, you have to keep in mind that if you have made to the interview stage, you are on equal footing with everyone over there. Your CAT percentile doesn't matter anymore. So that is the one thing that I kept in mind when going forward with the interview. One point that I would like to mention is that in my GI1, it was online. So the professors, they all asked us to recite our CAT scores out of nowhere. So everyone was like 97, 98, 99, and here I was with a 92.91. I felt a little out of place, but as it turns out, I'm here. So that's what I want to tell everyone as well. That is not the primary factor that for selection. Yeah.
So, Bob, on this note, I'm going to encourage people who are listening to this conversation live to put their questions. This probably is a big booster to a lot of people listening to this conversation as well, Santosh. Thanks for sharing your journey. Vijay, I'm going to come back to you. What was your experience like? I know for a fact that you are an engineer. There are terms like gems that are very famous within the community, as we have all heard, right? Being a gem, were you worried? That was my first question. Were you satisfied with the score that you have had, or you were confident that your profile somehow cuts it to make it to SPJIMR?
Yeah, so that's a very interesting question, and I think being a gem is like people are really just they are just scared of that word. Probably it's fair to say. And being a gem, I was also skeptical to an extent that I knew that I had to have a very good score so to really make it to all of the top B schools that I was dreaming of, right? And I was preparing with this time around with a full-time work experience as well. So definitely an intimidating experience. But with SPJIMR, what the main thing for me was that I had also been applying to it for the past 2 to 3 years, and I had got the shortlist. So I had recognized that this was one B school wherein I knew that if I play on my strengths and if I put who I really am, and I put my profile right on that application form, there is a good chance that I can carve a path into that B school, right? And that's exactly what happened. So I
Right.
was not that satisfied with my CAT percentile. It was around that 97 mid range. I could have done better. I did not perform to the best of my abilities on the D day. But regardless of that, as soon as I received the profile based shortlist, I knew that I have a very good chance now to prove myself, and that's the mindset. Then after that point onwards, that's the mindset I went ahead with. That okay, I've got this call. Now I need to work on really putting myself out there in front of the panelists, who they have seen the perception of me, which they have seen on the application form. I need to show them that yeah, it's the real person talking to them, and yeah, if I am able to prove that, it's a good chance that I can make it. So that was the mindset I moved ahead with after that.
Right. Divya, one quick question before I move to Vaibhav and ask him the question. I know one person personally who has been trying to get into SPJIMR for the last 2 years. Stellar
Mhm.
profile, again a gem, great CAT scores, right? Makes it every time to the cut as to what absolutely is the need of the art. Yet he doesn't make it, right? Is it the profile that's a problem? Is it how he's appearing in the interviews that's a problem, or do you think there is something else?
See, there are several factors that can, help a person get into the profile shortlist, or even profile come score shortlist for that matter. To be called for an interview, if you have chosen a certain specialization, then we check to see if the work experience, if you have provided one, does it align with this chosen specialization or not?
Correct.
Uh, that's one of the most important criterias because if you have work experience, it should add value to your final decision of specializing in a certain area because you're going to be managing something of which you have some technical knowledge or some background. Apart from that, we look for really genuine responses in all our questions. So I think people should focus on authenticity and try and bring out who they are because at the end of it, we are looking at words, right? We are looking at the application, the way the person has filled it. So if they take time out to fill it in the right sense, I think it strikes a chord with us. Having said that, the application pool also changes every year. So we have thousands of applicants, coming to us every year, and so the competition also increases. And only the best can make it to the shortlist. So it is a comparative exercise, unfortunately. So but also I would say, somebody who's tried once and does not get through should not lose heart and should try again the next year. You never know, you
Absolutely.
might just get shortlisted.
Perfect. Divya, that was my suggestion to the person as well in question. Vaibhav, what was the case for you? Was it a first time attempt that you had for SPJIMR and you got through? Were you expecting that this will happen? What was your personal experience like during the
Yeah,
selection?
yeah. So 2022 was the first time I was appearing for CAT, and to be honest, I was very nervous and intimidated just because of the sheer volume of competition which is out there. And but then at a point you realize that there's only so much that you can do, and not many things are in your control.
Yeah.
So I selected a pool of good B schools which I had targeted, and I remember filling the SPJIMR form because it was very detailed. And one suggestion I would like to give out to those who are filling the form this year: take a lot of time to think about yourself, because there are a lot of important things about you that even you don't realize are important till
Right.
you sit down to fill the form. So fill the form honestly, because as everyone mentioned, that being genuine matters a lot. And obviously there are 2 rounds of interviews, so if you are not genuine, then you would get filtered out. And yeah, those were some basic form filling steps. And for me, CAT was a good experience and I didn't have much regrets after the exam. Fortunately, I got a profile based call before the CAT results were out, so I didn't think CAT results had a part to play for my selection. And as everyone mentioned, once you are in the interview shortlist, just focus on giving your best and don't get much hampered by what's happening around you. And remember, you're just here because of your worth.
Super. You're here because of your work. Absolutely. Divya, I'm going to ask you something that probably a lot of the people who are listening to this are aware of, but still, if they are not, they will get to know about it. What are the various stages of the selection that happens? So, right from the admission form filling, because SPJMR is an institute where you have to probably fill a form separately, right? And to those who are listening, the link for that will also be in the chat box. My team probably will be putting it up. Do check it out. So I'm saying from the application form submission to the final selection that you guys make after, as we were hearing that there are 2 rounds of interviews. What exactly happens in between?
Yeah. So we have a window of about 2 months where candidates can apply to the program. Usually we start among about mid-September every year, and we have the deadlines till about 24th or 25th of November. So the first step is filling up the form, registering as a new candidate, filling up the form, completing it within the deadline. That's very important.
Right.
Some have a question that, I see a section for entrance tests, but I do not have the score now. So the answer to that question is that they need to fill the rest of the form, leave the field blank for the CAT and the GMAT entrance test, and submit the form.
Right.
After this is done, We reopen the form once the CAT results are out. That's the time that candidates get to fill in their CAT as well as the GMAT scores. So typically that happens somewhere between the last week of December to the first week of January. After that, we have a profile and a profile cum score shortlists. Now, these timelines for both profile and profile cum score can vary slightly, but between mid-December and about, say, 10th of January, most candidates will get to know whether they are selected or not and whether they are, shortlisted for the interview or not. Over the last few years, we've had online interviews, but this year we are going to have in-person interviews, face-to-face. So we will give them a choice of, location where they can come and give the interview. And we have interviews throughout the month of Jan and February.
Right.
And final results are then announced in the month of March.
Right. Okay. And, as we all have been discussing about the experience, extracurricular activities, the kind of profile that you have, or the kind of intent that you show on the application for the SS that you write, what is the breakup, the scores that you give them, the parameters on which you judge them? What should be a candidate thinking of while they are in each of these stages of selection?
Right. So when they're filling up the form, it's important that they give accurate details about their academics. They'll have to be very careful when they're filling up the form. Some of them make a mistake when they are writing their conversion factors. They're trying to convert it from a CGPA to a percentage. So they should be very careful there. Consistent academic record in both 10th, 12th, as well as graduation is very important. Further on, if people have professional qualifications, they should not miss out on that. There are people, especially say, for example, from the finance industry, who are chartered accountants and, they miss out on saying that they are a CA. So they should mention that.
Right.
Apart from that, any other certifications that they've done to add value, for example, any online courses, maybe on Udemy, Coursera, whatever it is, if they have a certification and they have the documentation to back it, they should mention that on the form. And so they need to be careful about what they write and try and be as exhaustive as possible and be patient to see if they qualify for a profile shortlist. And if they don't, they shouldn't lose heart because we have two shortlists. We have one profile shortlist and we also have a profile cum score shortlist.
Right.
So once the scores are added, we look at people who couldn't make it to a profile to see if adding the score, propels them higher onto the list.
Right.
So that's where they can look forward for a profile cum score shortlist. And once they get invited for the interview, I think that's where the real stress for them starts because then they wonder, what am I going to do in the interview, right?
Correct.
Now, our process is quite unique in that sense. Our experienced faculty members have a very unique way of asking questions, and most questions are never repeated. So, any amount of preparation that you would do has to be real, authentic. You cannot have well-rehearsed answers help you.
What has
because
been
they will-
your favorite question, Divya, that you have asked somebody and got a great response?
So rehearsed answers are usually like if I ask them, where do you see yourself 5 years from now?
Yeah.
But if I ask them, what will you do if you don't, get to the point where you thought you would in 5 years from now? What would be your reaction or what would you tell yourself at that time? Now no one is prepared for that question, right?
Right.
So we tweak questions. We try to be as spontaneous as possible and we expect the same spontaneity from the candidates themselves. And we also have a very unique process in the sense that we have group interviews. So you will never be interviewed alone. You will always have another couple of others sitting next to you. And it's very important to pay attention to what they are saying as well, because we might just turn to you and ask, did you agree with what that person said? And if not, how do you want to explain yourself differently?
Right. Divya, before we move ahead, this is a call to all the people who are listening to this conversation. Guys, share this webinar in your study groups with your friends because some amazing piece of information is being shared. Why I'm saying attend the webinar is because you get a chance to ask questions and get some of them answered for sure. So you get that opportunity. So definitely do that. And take advantage of this particular session that's happening today. Okay, Santosh, I'm going to go back to you. To take an aspirant point of view for an answer as to what I asked Divya. When you actually go through these kind of rounds, these stages, the admission process, what exactly goes in your mind? What exactly do you give preference to more? Is it the interview that you think that is the deal breaker? That's why you prepare in a certain way, or is it the essay building that you do, or is it the form submission, the very first, very beginning that you do?
No, I totally agree with Divya that the form filling process was the easier part. The interview was the harder one. So before I gave my interview, we are all accustomed to what the general personal interview is, right? But nobody is ready for a group interview. I mean, nobody knows what it is. Is it a group discussion? It is a group interview? Is it a personal interview? What is it like? So as she mentioned, those are the kind of questions that you asked. In the first one, we were ready for anything specialization based.
Right.
So to give my background, I am from NYMS and I completed my BBA in finance, and I'm also preparing for my CFA. So I'm a through and through finance guy. I remember cracking every book open and studying for hours on end in any small topic that might be asked. But ultimately, as she said, spontaneity, that was what came to my head. I don't know. Because my entire interview, it went on astronomy.
Right.
So all the professors were from operations background, and maybe the only finance question they asked me was like, if I had to give you a $1 billion portfolio, how would you manage it? Maybe that was the only finance question. Apart from that, everything was habits based, my personality, and astronomy. That was a big part of it. On the other hand, technicals is equally important because I know a couple of my friends who also appeared for the interviews. One of them got asked a question that in this RBI circular, there is this number on the top right. What does that number represent? So
Right.
even I don't know the answer.
Right.
But it might come in your interview. You never know. You can't be too prepared anytime. So I'd suggest brushing up on the technicals, whether it be marketing, operations, or information management.
Absolutely. So key, it seems, is when you are in front of these people who are judging you on spot, how you perform.
Exactly.
Right. Vijit, in your case, what exactly happened? Were you expecting a question to be in a similar line? Were you also thinking that, probably they'll ask me a lot of questions about my specialization or the engineering that I've done, and then you were stumbled with the questions that were on offer?
Yeah, so in my case, firstly, I was hoping that they do not go into my engineering background because it's been time for me. But lucky for me, the case was that I had already been once a part of the SPJIMR selection process. Of course, in the first case, the result was not the one I was hoping for. So it was not, it did not hit me firstly, like Santosh mentioned, that suddenly you do not know how to proceed in a group interview, right?
Yeah.
So that was a good part for me. But as soon as I sat for my interview, I was expecting some marketing questions, even some questions from my engineering. But the first, I would say, 7 to 8 minutes of my interview went around athletics because I had put in information that I had won a few things in athletics. I was a good athlete. So completely the first 7 to 8 minutes were around who's the 100 meters world record, how do you differentiate between a long jump and a high jump? So those type of questions were what they started with. And then later on, the interview went into a direction where there were some core mechanical questions. And finally, it was the why marketing question that you are a good athlete, you are an engineer, why do you actually want to do marketing? So, like ma'am mentioned, that spontaneity is the key, definitely. But yeah, I think in the group interview, what you also need to make sure is that of course, you need to be prepared for anything, but just make sure that you stick to the basics because, like I said, you need to be very aware of who you are as a personality and what you're trying to project. Because I knew that I am an athlete, I am an engineer, and I'm going for marketing. So I knew that even distinct, there is a possibility that they may touch upon this. So
Right.
luckily, I had brushed up on my general knowledge as well, and I knew that all the athletics and sport related questions as well. Probably if I hadn't done that, maybe the interview could have gone in a very different direction.
Right.
So yeah.
Vaibhav, do you think that there is stress interview that happens in any of these rounds and you are put to test by the people who are there?
Well, a very different view. What I have heard is SP professors are very sweet and they don't do stress interviews. And I had 2 rounds of interviews. I didn't face any stress interviews. The interviews were very smooth, and one plus point for me was that I have a different background since I have a BSMS in physics. So naturally, everyone was curious that you're doing physics, you're going on a scientist path now. Why do you want to switch your career? So that was one point where I got to drive the interview for a lot of time in most of my interviews, whether it was SP or some other college. And once you get to drive the interview, it's really upon you. And I felt that my interviews were mostly quite good.
And I'm assuming that your answer was I'm a scientist who want to market science.
No, actually, I tried to link my answer to finance, and probably the professors were convinced because the answers were genuine, and probably that's why I'm sitting here.
Sorry, Vaibhav, it was my me trying hands on a joke, but it most of the time it doesn't land. Probably that must have happened today as well. Divya, I'm going to move to you. There's a question that has come on the chat box. And you can ignore it if you don't want to dive in specific numbers. Saurav Patil is asking, how many people got into PGDM and PGDM BM through GMAT? And what is the average GMAT score for both programs? Is there something that you have in mind that is already out there that you can talk about?
Now, yeah, so our current batch strength for PGDM, our intake is 240, and for PGDM BM, it's 120.
Right.
So as long as that batch is made, we cannot exceed that number. Having said that, we do get a large number of applications who try to be part of both of the programs. And yes, I would say I think a large number of people who apply usually are giving CAT because that opens up avenues for a lot of institutes. A
Right.
majority of institutes, I think, accept CAT as one of the entrance tests. And we may not get as many who are, applying for GMAT. And a lot of people who aspire for the GMAT entrance exam are also people who try to study abroad.
Correct.
So we get a good mix of people. Rather than paying attention to the average score of GMAT, I think what, again, as we are having a discussion here, aspirants should take note that only the entrance score is not a criteria,
Yeah.
right? The entire application is a criteria, GMAT being only one of them, and that too, as long as you meet the cutoff of 85 percentile overall and 75 in each section. I mean, if your profile is strong and you're very clear in your mind about why you want to do a PGDM and why the chosen specialization, and your answers add up to that, and you already thought about it in great detail, I think you'll ace the interview. So
Correct.
that's my message to them.
Divya, I think you answered 3 questions in that answer. So somebody was asking the exact percentile target in CAT. Somebody was asking, can a fresher get into SPJIMR? You were seeing Santosh and Web in front of you who are freshers who have definitely gotten into SPJIMR and are talking to us today. Ujjwal Varve is asking if profile is good, but 32 years of age, it can be rejection for profile-based call. I think what Ujjwal wants to know is, does his age get considered?
Okay. So age is not really a factor here. What we are looking for is work experience that is less than 5 years. The PGDM program is designed in such a way that it is more favorable for people who are either freshers or people who have up to 5 years of work experience and not more. So your peers are also going to be around that age group. The kind of interactions that you have are going to be from people who have briefly spent some time in the industry and others who are freshers. For someone who is probably a little older or has a work experience of more than 5 years, we have other suitable programs also within the institute. So rather than trying to fit in into a PGDM, I think they should look for programs that are more executive in nature and go for a PGPM or any other programs which are available at the institute. We have more, I think, about 7 full-time programs that are available. So they are welcome to look at the website and find something that suits them and plays to their strengths.
Absolutely. And you guys, if you want to do that, as I mentioned, there is a link in the chat box. Do find that out. Go there, look for yourself, see which profile, which program is suited for your profile. Talking about profile, Divya, we all talk about unique profiles, right? And sometimes we get confused about what is unique anymore, right? Because probably everybody is a content creator now. Probably everybody has something or the other as their hustle that they do beyond their work that they are doing. So, taking one question, Nachiket Chavan is asking, can you define what a unique profile is?
See, the very fact that it is unique, it cannot have a definitive answer. Because the minute I give you a definitive answer, it's like a mathematical equation, right?
Yeah.
2 plus 2 will always equal 4. And now, while that answer is unique, it cannot be further away from the truth that it will always stay as 2 plus 2 equal to 4, right?
True.
So, I think every person has a different personality, and the way they put across their thoughts are different. I might be part of something which is musically oriented. Maybe I'm great at singing, for example.
Correct.
Another person might be great at playing an instrument. Now, while we both are musically inclined, we are again unique, right? Because one is playing the tabla and the other one is actually a vocal artist. So, as long as you list down your achievements in the way which is, understandable to us, and you have any achievements to back with documentation such as certifications or awards, I think just go ahead and put it down. Don't overthink it.
Right.
And again, being genuine is unique enough. No one else can then say what you say.
So, Sachin is asking, there is a section in the form saying academic achievements. Does that mean
Right.
achievements related to academics or any achievement during the academic years, like the best student award?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's all right if somebody aced something in standard 7th. It's all right if somebody aced something in standard 10th or
Right.
maybe 12th or in your graduation. Even, non-academically, there's also a section for versatility. So maybe academically, I did not have too many achievements, but I was part of the event organization for my college for the college fest. So that's a good example to give for, someone who may not have, maybe I didn't come first in my class, but maybe I was very good at extracurriculars. So
Right.
that also is an achievement that they should put down.
Right. Divya, when I asked you about the friend of mine who did not get through, you said that, you always see that the work that they're doing and the specialization that they want to take, whether that's fitting or not. If somebody is doing, say, for example, a developer's job, right? What would be the right fit for them? How do they go about selecting that?
There are two ways to go about it. So we have multiple boxes beneath the specialization choice. Okay. There are several reasons why a person might choose a certain specialization. One is that they have experience or education in the relevant field. So in case of a developer, I would have a relevant experience in the information management area, right? So that's the box I tick on. If I have a special interest in that area or I have done specialized courses in that area. So I might be a software developer, but I am probably interested in marketing and I have done a few courses in marketing. So that is a reason valid enough for you to select marketing as your first choice. And having said that, we also ask for a second preference. We don't only ask for a first preference. So if you choose a first preference, which is not very much aligned to your work experience, however, your second preference that you chose is very much in tandem with your work experience, you are likely to get shortlisted for your second preference, and that's just as well. It has no difference in the shortlisting process. And because of not fitting for spec one, it's not that you're getting eliminated, you get a chance because your second spec is relevant.
Right. Nachiket and Vijay, they are asking similar sort of questions, and I'll come back to you guys, Vaibhav, Vijay, Santosh, but I just want to take some questions in a bunch and then, move on to other questions that we have. Uh, they're saying is bad academics a straight no for a profile-based call. That's one. And the other part of the question is, what if someone has no academic achievement to show?
See, now again, academic achievements will back an already high academic performance. But if my academics are absolutely poor, it's unlikely that I'll have an academic achievement.
Yeah.
So I guess these are two separate questions that you are asking me because they cannot go hand in hand for the same person.
Yeah.
If I have a very bad academics, then I need our eligibility clearly states that we need to have at least 50% in the graduation. So that's the minimum we ask of. Anything less than a 50%, the person will get disqualified. So they need to ensure that they have a 50% in their graduation to be eligible to apply. And having said that, earlier I made a point about something being that it's a competitive exercise, right? So the higher scores you have, the better it is. Even in the case of entrance test score, while 85 percentile is the cutoff, there's no harm in having a higher score. It just increases your chances of getting a shortlist. It just increases your chances of being part of the batch.
Correct. Divya, interesting question, and I don't know what your answer would be. Anuj is asking if a candidate is very active in co-curricular activities and he has done trekking, cycling, but does not have any certifications to show. Would you believe that candidate?
So they can bring it up in the interview. They can share them as hobbies. But for me to be able to categorize it as an achievement on my application, I need some kind of documentation to prove it.
Right.
We've had, instances where people have said that, I have won such and such match, but I don't have a certificate. I have a cup. Can I give you a picture of the cup? No, unfortunately, I cannot take the picture of the cup. I do need a certificate of participation for the least. And yeah, so and you know what? I also believe that nowadays students are so outgoing. They have more than one achievement, right? And we have space for only five. So pick up your five best achievements that you have documentation for. While you may have 20 or 10, maybe those five are the ones that you put in your application, and the other five are the ones you speak about it in the interview, and that's all right.
All right. Very pointed question. Laksh is asking, I have 3 international publications and a patent in my field. Would that add value to my profile as my papers are not related to management?
It will add value to the profile.
Absolutely.
We believe that you are here to learn about management. It doesn't have to be that, you already know about management.
Got it. All right. Some more questions. A lot of questions are coming up. I'll go back to the questions in some time, guys. Stay tuned to this conversation. Keep asking questions, and as I mentioned, share it with people who probably are preparing for getting into an institute like SPJIMR. I'll move to the students who are sitting here. Vaibhav, I'm going to go to you. Do you specifically remember any challenge or any point at which you think that you thought that, probably I'm not cut out for this and I might not be able to make it, but then something happened and you got through? Did that happen to you?
Yeah, that's a very interesting story. So I think my first preference was for the PGDM program, the finance specialization, and 2 to 3 days before my GI1 was scheduled, I was listening to how the interviews are going this year, and I was really stressed because some of the interviews are going pretty finance heavy, and I don't have a finance background, so it was very overwhelming for me. So fortunately, I had a good set of people to talk to, and I talked with my family members and my friends, and they really motivated me, saying that just give your best shot. And contrary to the exception, contrary to the idea, I didn't get selected in GI1 for finance, but I made it through to in the PGDM BM program. So I feel that even if you get a setback, it definitely teaches you and improves you so that you can give your best next time.
Right. Vijit, tell me in a nutshell, what exactly do you think that has worked for you in your favor? When you think about it in hindsight, when you would probably advise people that probably you should do this, step 1, step 2, step 3, what would be your advice to them?
Okay. So I think for me, the biggest thing that worked was that I was able to establish a synergy with my profile and marketing. So when I was working as a consultant, although, but I was working with a top pharmaceutical company's marketing mix team. So from there, I had the exposure that, hey, this is what I have been doing, and this is what I want to learn, and this is what the marketing specialization or an MBA in marketing specialization will do for me.
Right.
So I was able to establish that story, and once I was able to do that, I think that was the biggest thing that worked for me. Further to that, I had also done some activities in my undergrad directly related to marketing or sales in some manner through club activities and all, which also I think played a part in adding to my profile and adding to that story that I was fit for marketing. So I think I was able to well establish that, and I think that's the biggest thing that worked for me.
Right. We have a lot of questions, but very specific, pointed questions, about their kind of academic and journey that they have had. We are not going to pick those questions. Anything specifically you want to know about the program and the selection process, feel free to ask that question, guys, because, answering specific questions like those becomes very difficult because every story is different, right? When you go there and pitch yourself, you might turn out to be a superhero, and that's something that we are discussing as well, and that's something SPJIMR also gives a lot of emphasis on. However, having said that, you know, as I mentioned, the first thing that is important, and as Divya was also saying, is to present yourself well, right, through that application form. For somebody who probably does not know how to write a LinkedIn profile that way, right? Keeping that person in mind, Santosh, what would be your advice they should be doing with respect to their application form one and the CV if that needs to be attached or given along with the application?
No, I don't think the resume or the CV is required at this point of time. So my advice again while crafting your application PDF is to be true to yourself and write what comes naturally to you. You don't need a lot of big words to describe yourself. You don't need jargons. You just need to put down your thoughts, and those thoughts should be selectively identified. So
Right.
each question, I believe, should be analyzed first, thought about deeply as to what the answer should be. Aspect of your life do you think is the most relevant to that question? I think that's most important. And only
Right.
then you put it down. It's not an essay writing competition at the end of the day. It's about how you present yourself. And that narrative should come in naturally. Right? It should be a coherent self that you portray throughout. In my interview, I remember certain people weren't able to answer why marketing or why finance, even though they were certified financial analysts or had done something in those fields. So I believe that's very important as to have a clear narrative of why you want to do this.
Yeah.
And because of that, in my GI1, I got rejected from my BM, exactly opposite to Webhub. I got selected for finance and got rejected from BM. So I believe I was heartbroken at that point of time. But then it worked out in the end because I think I was more a finance guy than a Gen Man guy, probably because of that.
Got it. Divya, I have an interesting question for you, and probably that might, land you in some sort of trouble to answer, but I'm going to ask you instead. Aditya from Cardiff University is asking, I studied at UK, in the UK and scored 63%, which is considered standard in UK. I mean, I don't know what standard means here, but I'm assuming that it's good score, keeping UK in mind, not the Delhi public school in mind. Will I be at a disadvantage competing with higher scores from Indian candidates? And does this happen as well? So, like the conundrum of.
So we get, candidates who have studied in different disciplines. We also get applications from candidates who have studied abroad and now are seeking to do their MBA from an Indian institute such as SPJIMR. And my suggestion to them is go ahead and apply because, as stated, as long as you meet the 50% criteria for graduation and that your graduation is recognized and is a 3-year degree, you meet the minimum eligibility. And the chances of you getting shortlisted and the chances of you making it to the batch is a sum total of your application, your entrance exams scores, your academics, your work experience if you have any, your performance in the interview, both round one and round two. So it's a sum total of everything, right? There's no one aspect that can set you back. At the same time, focus on your strengths, and as long as you meet the minimum eligibility, just give it a go. If not anything, I'm not saying that everybody who applies gets in, but the experience that you get is irreplaceable. So just go for it, guys.
Sorry, there is one question. I'm actually going through all the questions that we have received from people. And again, as I mentioned, there's a lot of overlap in sort of knowing what SPJIMR stands for. There's somebody asking how to fill in the university, personal, and professional achievement sections accurately. Is it that difficult? Divya?
Not really. Again, it's an optional requirement. Not everyone will have a professional qualification or an achievement. If you have one, you can fill it up. If not, and that's perfectly all right. You don't need to. Professional courses usually are to do with CA or any kind of CFA exams or anything that you might have given. Professional achievements, again, if you have actually got some kind of recognition at work, and you have certificates, or you finished a particular workshop and you've done really well, or you've been part of a project which you were awarded something, I think you should go ahead and just put that on.
Correct. Uh,
One point I wanted to clarify is
yeah.
that our participants today made a point about writing responses to questions, to essay questions, and so we have two parts of the application form. One is the application which is currently available to aspirants. Once they fill in and they get shortlisted, we open up another shorter section, which will have these essay questions, which are very vital for the interview.
Great.
And so it's a two-stage process. Currently, filling the application form as they see is very important. Once they get shortlisted, they will have an opportunity to fill Form B. And that's where their responses need to be genuine and they need to write what comes naturally to them. That's one thing I wanted to clarify.
Got it.
And
Yeah, that's valuable information. Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah.
Please.
Yeah, and with regard to relevance, now if you are a fresher, you obviously don't have a work experience that will, collaborate with your specialization choice. But a lot of it has to do with maybe elective that you took in your graduation. So maybe a particular subject that was of interest to you. Maybe you took up extra courses to add on to your knowledge of that particular specialization. So you can go ahead and tick the necessary boxes below the specialization choice. And that way we understand that while you are a fresher, why are you interested in marketing? And reflecting on yourself is the most important aspect, because suddenly when people ask you questions as to why this, why that, if you haven't thought of it already in your mind, it is difficult to come up with an answer, right?
Correct.
And unless you are yourself convinced about your decision, it's very hard to convince an interviewer. So
Absolutely.
reflection is very important. Guys, be very clear on what you want to do. Maybe sit with your seniors, maybe sit with your peers, sit with your friends or elders or anybody who can guide you. Come up with a career path first. Think about where you want to be, what you want to do, and then fill up the form. The amount of genuinity that you can put into the application and in your interview will surprise yourself then.
Correct. Uh, uh, Divya, Rakesh Vankar from Ahmedabad University wants to ask a very specific question, and I hope that this solves a lot of the gap year questions that people have in mind. He's saying that he completed his BBA in 2014 and due to health conditions could not carry on working. He does not have a work as well. Now his health is stable and he wants to get back to education, but he's 29 and he's worried that whether if he starts at this particular age, whether the corporate world will accept him or not. But rather than thinking about whether a B school like SPJIMR is going to take him, he's thinking two steps beyond thinking that whether he will survive in the corporate world at this point. What is your suggestion?
I think, again, I mean, don't be, affected by numbers so much. You had a valid reason on why the break was there. And your performance in the interview or in your application or the details you provide in your application form should not be any different, right? Just because you're starting late. Our batch size being the same of 240, we have participants starting from an age group between 22 to 29. So that's kind of the average that we have so far. And outliers are always there. And rather than thinking about should I not, I think go ahead, do it. Uh, Time does not come back again. So I think you should take a shot. Fly.
Super. Just let me figure out a few more questions that have come in live. Yeah. Sachin is asking, I've heard SPJIMR asks a lot of questions and has a long form to be filled. Are there any changes with respect to the form filling? Are you making life easier for them or you're going to make them fill long form this year is another question that Sachin is asking. Because this year's form includes achievements and work experience as well. So he has done it in three parts. He has asked this question. If it's relevant, they are often asked. answer. Sorry.
We've always asked for work experience. We've always asked for achievements and extracurriculars. There has never been a change in that.
Yeah.
Rather than thinking that the form is long, I think they should take it as an opportunity to tell us more about themselves because that helps us make a decision. So yeah, and I think there are institutes that have longer forms. Ours is not the longest one for sure.
I like that response. Divya, Sanyam, I think after listening to you when you said about the Form B, it's asking the Form B has been removed this time. So will there be any changes in the way shortlist is done? If we have already answered this, we can skip it.
Yeah, as I said before, shortlisted candidates will have an opportunity to fill Form B. But at this point, the application form which is available to you is the form that you need to fill in its entirety. There are no other forms that you need to fill at this point of time.
All right. Pause or metals, I don't know what this username is asking a very, very important question. Are all of you guys on LinkedIn?
I am on
Because
LinkedIn.
yes, because probably he has more questions. Probably he wants to understand more from you guys as to what exactly is needed to get into an institute like SPJIMR. Before we draw close to this particular webinar today, I'm going to ask each one of you to answer something that you want to answer, right? Something that probably you were looking for an answer a year back. I'm talking to Vaibhav, Vijit, and Santosh here, and you didn't get that answer, and you thought that probably if there was somebody who could have told me this. Vaibhav, will start with you.
Well, I didn't have much fresher friends who got into B school, so I just needed someone to keep a hand on my shoulder and say that even you can make it with a different background.
Right, and that's very, very important, Vaibhav, and that's why we probably have these conversations to make people believe that yes, they can. Yes, Santosh, can we go next?
I was not able to hear you. Could you repeat the question, please?
Yeah, my question, Santosh, was at the point when you were actually filling the form or you were in the process of getting the admission, was there a question that you wanted an answer for that was left unanswered?
Yeah, so I vividly remember one moment in my entire process. It was during my GI2. So up until then, I had kept this bear inside me very calm as to not get intimidated by everyone else. And I was very, I was thinking that I should not let the inner fresher come out because I'm with very experienced people talking about things that they know. So I should not come out as inexperienced. So that was on my mind very much. But in one of the questions that the professors asked, in that I faltered a little bit and gave a very gloaty answer. So they were immediately like, no, that was not an answer that we were looking for. You sit down with you. So that was a moment that I felt like, okay, this might not happen. But then once everyone got done with their answer, I again came back to the question and I said something that I had read in some newspaper a couple of months ago. So that was one moment that changed it all because the professors then now actually I study under them, and now that I speak to them, they're like, yeah, maybe that changed about it. So it's about that one moment where the spontaneity again comes in, and that was the whole game changer for me, honestly.
Right, Vijit, anything that you want to share at this moment about the question that I asked?
Sure, Paul. So I can't seem to think of a particular question at this point in time, but one thing that I would have liked someone else to share to have shared with me earlier was that, and that I can share with the people now is that going through the SPJIMR selection process is one of the most unique experiences that you are going to have as an MBA aspirant. It's an amazing process because right through from the form filling, you really need to know yourself if you need to ace this process is how I look at it. So in that sense, it's one of the most unique experiences that you go through, right through the form filling and then GI1 and finally GI2. And in GI2, you are talking to people who have 40, 45 years, even years of experience in the industry, and you're talking to them about ethics and you are debating them.
Yeah.
So that is an experience, I think, it's only SPJIMR as an institute which provides it. And I think just for that opportunity and to just ace that process, I think I encourage everyone to really, step into this process. Yeah, so that's my thought.
Super. Thank you very much, guys. Divya, on last few words from you, a piece of advice that you want to give to candidates. We have spoken in detail about the kind of profiles and how to, present your profile in such a way that you make sure that you make an impact. Tell people about till what date they have time to do that. What is the deadline for this year? How do they go about maximizing their chance? And what is your last piece of advice that you want them to do?
Okay. One thing I would say is do not leave things for the last minute. As you have realized from the inputs that are given by Vaibhav, Santosh, and Vijit here, the form needs to be filled with care. So do not leave it to the last minute. Our deadline for receiving application forms is on the 24th. Usually extensions are not provided, so try and fill up your form before the deadline. And don't make mistakes, because once the form is filled, it is not editable. Okay. We cannot take on requests for edits, because at the end of it, you are responsible for the information you give. And we expect that candidates proofread the details before they fill. And it just gives you confidence that you have done the right thing, right? You do not want to mess up, start 15 minutes before the deadline and make a hodgepodge of the application form. So start confidently, start in advance, think about the answers, and do not worry about too many things that are, out in the future. What will happen? Am I too old? Am I not a fit? We have non-engineers in our batch. We have engineers in our batch. We have architects, our people who are in architecture in our batch. We've got medical students in our batch. I mean, it cannot get more diverse than this, right? So go ahead and apply without second thought. But at the same time, be genuine, be correct, be exact, be detailed, and all the best for your processes.
Wow, that probably sums this up. And as my cat in the background probably will also say, it's time to end this and give food to them. Thank you very much, Divya, Vaibhav, Santosh, Vijit, for your time today. I hope that this session was helpful. I hope that aspirants learned something that they were looking for from this webinar. Do keep an eye on the channel, guys. We're going to put in a lot of content around SPJIMR and admissions and the kind of information that you probably will need. There is already a video on the platform which is talking more about the GMP program that they have. You can go and check that out as well. As I mentioned before as well, there is a link for your PGDM program. If you want to know more about it, click on that link. Apply to the institute if you feel you fit the bill, and the institute also fits the bill for you. Thank you very much once again, guys, and have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.